Welcome to the Kohatsu Cave of Games. I'm Nathan, and today I will be talking about Atlantis Rising, what I think is a really good co-op game from Z-Man Games. I think it came out last year. It plays 2 to 6 players, full cooperative. There's no trader aspect or anything. Expect to spend about 20 minutes per player, so 6 players would be 120 minutes. The basics of the game is that you are cooperatively working together to build a Stargate of sorts to warp everybody off of Atlantis, because of course Atlantis is sinking. Atlantis is sinking through misfortunes like earthquakes and whatever is starting to flood the island, and Atlanteans are continually attacking you, and if they do any damage to you, then that's how much the island will flood as well. So the main goal of the game is everybody's working together to collect resources in order to build these components to the Stargate. And the components can change every game. That's how you scale the difficulty of the game. And if you successfully build all 10 pieces, then you've all won the game. If the island sinks before you can do that, then you've lost. The main driving mechanic of doing that is worker placement. So unlike other cooperative games, which usually rely on action selection or moving pawns on a board, this game uses worker placement. So everybody collectively, one at a time, one player at a time, places all of the workers out onto the board. And it goes around like that. And then the misfortunes happen. So after you place your workers out, you'll start drawing cards, 1 per player. So that's how it scales between 2 and 6. And you get to see what happens. A lot of times things will start flooding. And because the game is worker placement, I'll show you in a bit, but the board is shaped like this starfish thing you'll see here. And you can place workers near the outer fringe to get a better benefit, like you'll get more gold or something. But that might have a chance to sink during the misfortune phase. So it is very much risk versus reward in a cooperative setting, to where, yeah, I really want more gold, so I'll go there. But if that section of the island floods during misfortune, then those workers come back and that's it. You don't get to take that action for the turn. So it is very much like loss mitigation kind of deal. The difficulty of the game ranks up there with Ghost Stories and Yggdrasil for me. Where it's very difficult. You'll lose more than you will win. Overall, I really enjoy it, but I do have a lot of gaming buddies in my personal gaming circles that just do not like it, because it is kicking your butt all the time. If you do not find enjoyment in that, it really won't be a game for you. It is a very difficult game. I do like the theme of it, because you're sending workers out and they have a chance to flood. They might survive, who knows? But you are working together to collect resources to ultimately pull out a victory and get off the island before it sinks. Great with kids too. Kids love to play it. The rules are pretty simple, and it has all of the tropings of a regular co-op in there, to where everybody has a variable player power, and it's a passive ability that everybody gets a turn every turn kind of deal. The game scales, like I said, with the misfortune cards between 2 and 6 players very easily by just drawing the number of bad cards equal to the number of players every turn. So you really don't have to modify a lot. You could just throw the board on the table and get to it. Luck plays very heavily in this game, like most co-ops that are hard. Whenever you go for resources, you have to roll dice, and there's a minimum number that you have to hit in order to get that resource. And the number to hit gets harder as the island starts flooding. So at the beginning of the game, you might have to roll a 2 to get a resource, but by the end, you have to roll a 5 or a 6. And it's very difficult to artificially pump your dice after you roll them. So yeah, super luck-based. I enjoy it tremendously. It is very good. Your experiences in it will differ, because because of the dice roll. One game might be super extremely easy because you're just rolling nothing but box cards, and in other games you just roll ones, and it's a horrible, horrible experience. So just, you're going to have to know that getting into this game, that you're rolling dice to get resources. So that's about it. If you like co-ops at all, I would definitely give this one a go, because the component quality is good, the gameplay is good. I really like it a lot. It is replayable to the nth degree kind of deal. I'll get it to the table so you can take a look at it, and I'll explain what you can do on your turn, and we'll go from there. Alrighty? See you at the table. Alright, so here we are at the table. That's the board game up there, and you get a bunch of little tokens and stuff to use during the game. And you set out 10 cards that form your kind of component pile. And you have to build all 10 of these cards in order to successfully get off the island. Just to show what a card looks like, there you go. The cards have an A through D on the back, and that's how you can gauge the difficulty. Put in more C and D cards if you want the game to be harder. But basically, the card will just sit here like this, and it shows you that it needs these 4 resources in order to be constructed. And when you build the card, it'll give you a special bonus. That's pretty much what the cards do. So they all have different resource amounts and stuff like that. So as I said, the goal of the game is to build all 10 of these. At the start of the game, everybody will pick or randomly choose the players that they want to be. This guy is a priest. Every turn he'll gain 1 mystic energy, which I'll explain in a second. But all of the cards at the bottom here, if I can get it in a focus, it shows the 5 phases of every turn and what you can do with your mystic energy. So just going by this, I'll explain what you can do on your turn, and that'll be that. First phase, place Atlanteans. At the start of the game, you're going to get 3 workers, which are these dudes right here, little worker dudes. You'll get 3 of them. They place out on the island wherever you want. Then it goes round robin. Everybody gets to place all their workers, and then it gets back to you. You being the start player who gets this little start player marker. This marker will just go to the player on your left at the end of every turn. So there'll be a new start player kind of deal. Just to show you what these spots are. These two kind of go hand in hand. If you go over here, you see that you can produce these black cubes. For every worker that you send to a circle, after you draw your misfortunes, you'll be able to take your workers off, like Stone Age style, and then immediately perform its action. So this guy, you'll have to roll a 3 or higher, and you'll get a black cube for every guy that you send here kind of deal. As you'll notice, the further away from the island center you are, the better chances you have of getting the item. But there's a chance that the island will flip over and sink, sending your guy back home. He doesn't actually die, but he just doesn't get to do anything for that turn. So you might get unlucky and like flip these 3 in a 6-player game all in one turn. You just have no idea. It's total luck of the draw. The bad part about these black cubes is that no component uses black cubes. They have to be refined, which is this right here. You take this action to refine 1 black cube into 3 gray cubes. I've forgotten the names of the elements, so you'll just have to bear with me. I like colors. So you have to go here, and you have to send another guy here to refine it. But just like in Stone Age, you can send a guy here and here in the same turn in hopes that you'll be successful here, and then you could use this action kind of deal. But that's what these two do. Going over here, this is how you get another resource type that's gold, and it goes from 3 to 5. These are diamonds. They're the worst. They go from 4 to 6. And these other 2 spots are kind of specialty spots. This spot is how you get the good cards in the game, the little tombs that give you little special bonuses. In order to go down, if you go down here to the bottom one, this means you get to draw 2 and keep 2. Draw 2 and keep 1. Draw 1 and keep 1. These cards can be very beneficial because they break the game rules kind of deal. They let you share resources and might stop or re-roll a die kind of deal. So these cards can help you a lot in mitigating the luck of the misfortune deck. This final spot is how you get additional workers. All of these spaces, see how there's like 3 circles here? Any number of players can share the same spot. It doesn't matter. This is the only kind of arm that requires that you send all of the workers in order to fulfill its function. And it kind of showcases that here. But when you start the game, you have 3 workers and you can get up to 6. So going down here, you just put 1 worker down and he very mysteriously Virgin marries himself a child. But up here is regular couple hump spots. And then up here is a threesome just to get 1 dude. So the game is very easy at getting new people off the bat, but it gets progressively harder as the game goes on. The middle spot is any number of people can send en masse every turn, and that just gets you 1 mystic energy, which are these cool like fishbowl gem things. 1 mystic energy for every guy that you send there. So, hopefully that all made sense to you. So at the start of your turn, you'll send out all the guys that you've got out to the board here. Any one of the 5 arms that you wish, you can kind of discuss what you want with your buddies and then place accordingly. Or you can send your guys here to defend against the Atlanteans? Athenians. Athenians. Send guys here to battle the Athenians. At the end of the turn, you're going to take this number that is shown wherever the boat's at. It usually starts here on this 0 spot, but then it'll go to +1, yada, yada, yada. And you'll take this black die and roll it, and you'll add that number to whatever number's here. So in this case, this would be 5. If there are not at least 5 defenders, which are just workers that you sent here instead of the board, you'll sink sections of the island equal to the difference if it's in the Athenians' favor. Ties go to you, nothing happens, and nothing will happen if you actually overpower the Athenians. That just means that nothing sank that turn. So, as you can see, procreation becomes super, super important because at the end of every turn, this boat marches on. So, especially in a 4+ player game, that number gets to 12. +2 is 14. So 14 people need to be here, or else sections of the island will start to flood. Normally you cannot send 14 people here, so the game becomes a race against the clock to try to build as much as you can before the Athenians overpower you, because this is kind of the end game trigger. This will force you to start sinking the island, because you cannot handle a +12. So, going back to the card, first thing you do is place Athenians. Everybody does that in turn order. Then you draw misfortune cards, which are from this lovely, wonderful misfortune deck. You'll draw 1 per player, so you'll just draw this over and it tells you, oh great, flood the cities. That's the hump spot. So the first city would get flooded and anybody that was on that would have to go home. Then you draw the next one, flood forges, and then yay, calm seas, nothing happens. There's like 3 in the deck. That's great. Controlled flood, flood 2 tiles in any sections. So as you can see, a majority of the cards are going to hurt you. They're going to start immediately flooding the island super, super fast. So you have to really talk amongst yourselves, decide which cards that you're going to build, and get to it. After you draw 1 misfortune per player, it goes back to the start player, whoever has a start player marker, and you do your productive actions, which means you get to go back to the board, and just like in Stone Age or any other game that's like that, you'll take workers off the board 1 at a time, executing the action as you take it off the board. That's pretty much it for productive actions. The guys that you sent over here to fight the Athenians will just stay put. They won't do anything. After you go around the entire table where everybody gets to perform their worker actions, then the Athenians attack, which just means you roll the die and you do your combat resolution. Whoever sent the most people here, after that, gets what's called a courage token. Woo, courage token. Courage tokens are neat because in any future turn, courage tokens will count as a guy if you send a guy with a courage token here. So this guy now counts as 2 instead of 1. You can send multiple guys on multiple courage tokens, but it always has to be a 1-for-1. You can also send a guy with a courage token to a spot on the island itself. And if you do that, and the island actually sinks during the misfortune phase, because he's so courageous, he performs his action. You lose the token, and then the guy comes home. But he got to perform his action, which is crucial. So those things are pretty nice. After you resolve how the Athenians attack, you build components. Again, with the start player and going around, everybody has the opportunity to spend the resources that they've gathered during the turns to build one and only one component per player per turn. And you basically keep going around like that. At the end of the turn, this passes to the next player, and the little Athenian boat thing moves ahead to its next number. And rinse, wash, repeat until either the island floods or you build all 10 components. The only other real thing to talk about is the mystic energy. You can spend 1 to add 1 to a resource roll, so that's the only way that you can kind of +1 it. You can spend 2 to transmute any resource to any other resource, so that is very, very nice when your forges over here that convert the blacks to grays, if that's completely flooded, then you could just take a black and transmute it to diamonds instead of sending a whole bunch of guys to diamonds and wasting die rolls. You could just go to the middle and start transmuting instead. Very nice. These other 2 have asterisks next to them, which means that either of these 2 crystal or mystic energy abilities can be grouped together from multiple players. Normally, to add 1 to a roll or to transmute, it has to be your mystic energy, but you can pool energy to cancel a misfortune flood, a flood misfortune rather. So if you draw a misfortune that is a flood the cities, and you really, really, really don't want that to happen, then you could chip in 3 to cancel that, or you could spend 5 to unflip a flooded tile, which is absolutely brutal, because one of the only ways to get mystic energy is to go to the middle. So you just spent 5 workers worth of actions to unflip 1 tile, which is bad. The variable player powers are cool. Like this priest gets a mystic energy at the beginning of every turn. This explorer, all target numbers to collect resources are reduced by 1 for you. So he really loves to go out and get diamonds and gold and stuff. I think there's 6 possible characters, so they'll all play in a 6-player game. Otherwise, you could just pick or choose. There are arguments everywhere that some are more powerful than others, just like the pilot or whatever in Pandemic. So take all that with a grain of salt, but basically it's a co-op where you have to roll a lot of dice to get resources and hopefully beat out the clock to build all the cards. So the game definitely does beat you up when you're really, really hoping to like roll a 5 on diamonds, and then diamonds ends up flooding anyways, so you never even get a chance to, or you have to roll a 6 or blah blah blah. It's all luck based, but I love it. It is awesome. I was starting to pack up the game and I realized I didn't explain the horrible thing that happens if you have an arm of your island that is completely flooded and you draw another card for that arm. You essentially have to flood 2 sections of around the island that's not this already flooded arm. They could be of the same section or different sections, it doesn't matter, but you have to flip 2 instead of flipping the 1 here. So it's kind of like the pandemic outbreak aspect of the game. You always have to keep that in mind. Do not forget about that. And there's a sippy cup. Yeah. So that's about it for Atlantis Rising. Pretty simple game to explain. There's not that many actions that you can take, but everything still boils down to just getting the cards constructed. So there's not too big of an issue with an alpha gamer in this game compared to Pandemic, because you're not solving the super big puzzle that there's like one super efficient way to do it. Everybody just picks, okay, I'm going to go for the 3 gold card kind of deal. And everybody just goes on their little separate paths and they try to get the resources they need before the island starts to flood. It scales pretty well. It's not super great with 2, but the sweet spot, like with most games, especially co-ops, is 4. But that's about it. If you have any questions or anything I missed in the explaining things, just hit me up on BGG or YouTube or Twitter, and I'll try to answer them. And that's about it. So have fun gaming all the time, every day if possible. Yeah. Have a good one.